Greetings, everybody. It's October 1st. September is gone. It's a beautiful day. And this is the Twin City Metro Growers Network Grower Spotlight. And let me just share my screen again for a second. I am Carl Hawkinson. I'm with the University of Minnesota Extension, Hennepin County, and I do this effort in conjunction with the Sustainable Farming Association. Here's our lovely webpage. You can go here for past events and resources, and here's what's going on today. As long as there's not too many people, why don't we just go around and introduce ourselves. And Katie, why don't we start with you?
All right. Hi, I'm Katie Federal. I'm the communication instructor for Sustainable Farming Association. And just a little pitch for SFA. We are a farmer-to-farmer network that is statewide. There are 9 different chapters that are regional. And then we have these networking groups like the TC Growers. And farmer-to-farmer really does, I guess it just is the phrase for SFA. It's farmers teaching farmers, sharing, helping each other be better. SFA offers a lot of educational opportunities. We partner with other people to be doing research and together resources for folks. So wherever you are in your farming journey, if you're aspiring, if you've already, been in the game for years, there's community for you with SFA, and enjoy TC Growers. I'm excited. This has been a really bright spot. These meetings have been in these pandemic months. So looking forward to hearing from Lakisha.
Thank you. And I'll just go around. Valentine?
Sure. I'm Valentine Cadieux. I'm one of the board members for the Twin Cities Community Agricultural Land Trust. So I work with Carl and Jennifer in a network, also working with Lakisha, and the Urban Farm and Garden Alliance is one of the community groups we work with a lot, both so getting land, figuring out how we can get land, and doing some of the organizing of the community side of farming. So great to be here tonight. I've also been really looking forward to this. I got to see Lakisha's farm early in the season when the plants were small, so I'm really excited to see how they come.
That's great. And Eric?
Well, I live kind of near Wilmer. I'm a member of Sustainable Farming Association's Western Minnesota chapter. And I guess just I enjoy all of these SFA events. It's just fun to see people doing these things, see it in action. It's fun to talk to people. So I probably will never be involved in urban growing, but I'm moving the direction of organic agriculture here, and just interested to learn all I can.
Excellent. Thank you. And Sophia?
I'm Sophia McBrayer, and I'm an intermediate farmer at this point, and hoping to scale up next year and do some farmers markets.
Excellent. Oh, Jennifer, caught you in a yawn. Oh, yeah.
My excited face. I am Jennifer, I use she, her pronouns. I am a graduate student at the U, and I work with urban growers for my research. I also am an urban grower. I help run a community garden in Southeast Como, and I'm on the board of the Twin Cities Ag Land Trust. If you're wondering if I have free time, the answer is yes, because the pandemic forced me to have a better work-life balance. And that is probably healthy.
Excellent. Lillian?
Hi, everybody. I am Lillian Otieno, and I work for the Minnesota Department of Agriculture Produce Safety Program. I am the outreach coordinator for that program. So my role is, the way I sum up my role is relationships, building relationships, expanding existing relationships, creating new ones, and most importantly, making sure that we are supporting all our growers, farmers, and making sure that we are paying attention and being intentional on the diversity of farmers that we have in our state, and diversity that is in geography, that is in growing operations, and that is also diversity in race, ethnicity, and all the other things that come with it's the great fabric of the Minnesota farming community. I visited Lakisha's farm just recently. Hey, so very excited and proud of the work that Lakisha is doing, and she's also part of our produce safety advisory group, one of the members who helps inform our program, because we want to hear from farmers to make sure that we're being responsive to their needs and in a way that makes sense to them and not necessarily what we think makes sense to them. So happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me. And Lakisha, proud of you.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see where we're going. Molly O'Meara. We've got two Mollys here tonight.
It's always exciting to have two Mollys, right?
Absolutely. Can't have too many Mollys.
Right? So I'm Molly O'Meara. I live in Standish, Minneapolis. I garden, I grow food in most of my yard. And just for myself and friends, I don't sell any of it, but the thought has crossed my mind. And then in the winter, I do microgreens inside for myself as well. I'm a nurse by trade, but I really love growing food. And honestly, like being a nurse in a pandemic, like my garden has been my kind of my like, I don't know, my healing this summer. So it's been just really great part of my life. And it's great to see this group again. I had gone to a few meetings last year, and it was really great to kind of start building community. So I'm just really glad to have us all back together again and see some new faces and hear about Lakisha's farm. So great to see everybody.
Excellent, Molly. To you and all the other nurses, great thanks. It's one thing about the pandemic. Nurses, teachers, it's made us think about some really important people that we maybe haven't thought about as important as, it's really great. Thank you. And then Molly Delarbre, did I say that right?
Yeah, that's close enough. Just depends. Right now, I'm just a supporter and conscious consumer, and I have been a part of this Sustainable Farming Association just since I went to college for sustainable food production, which isn't a program anymore, if anyone remembers that program. I think it was only for 3 years available, but I'm not sure what my place is gonna be, but I'm just
keep on pushing.
Yep.
Excellent.
So
Good to see you.
And listen in.
And you have some extra help there.
Yes,
Thank you.
I have 8 kids, so I always
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
something going on.
And I see Patrice, you've joined us. We're just going around with some welcomes. Great to see you, man.
I am here. Thank you, Lakisha and Lillian. I am really glad to be here. Patrice Bailey, Assistant Commissioner for MDA. And I am looking forward to hearing about some of the great things that the Twin Cities Metro Growers Network is doing. We have one more day until the applications are done for the working group is tomorrow.
Far out.
So, last push.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Thank you so much. Let's see. Where are we? Kirsten?
Hi. Yes, I'm Kirsten Saylor. I am working with St. Paul Public Schools to support school garden work there and to help kids learn about seed to serve food skills. I also work around the state too, giving workshops in school gardening.
And Kirsten helped me greatly when I first came to this job, and we put together a sustainable ag, urban ag get together at UROC, and that turned out really well. Shanton?
Hi, my name is Shanton Thompson, and I'm currently a dance instructor here in Hopkins, Minnesota. And my family and I, we are aspiring farmers. We're, to the idea of it, and was hoping to get some good education on Lakisha's journey and see how everything,
Excellent. Excellent. Welcome. And then Rebecca.
Sure. My name's Rebecca Bronder, and I'm just very interested in the greenhouses and things like that, and learn some more about it. I actually live up in Breezy Point.
All right. Excellent. Thanks for joining us. And so, Lakisha, I will turn it over to you. And if you want to share your screen and start your show. And
Alrighty.
boom. Ah, it's an elephant. That's what she uses to plow with. No.
All right, can you guys see it now?
Yes, looks great.
All right, so thank you all for joining. We are working through the technical difficulties, and I feel like everything will work out according to plan. But we do have a PowerPoint presentation, so that's one thing we did get. I wanted to first talk about kind of what I do and how I got into farming. So today we'll just kind of go over like my reasoning of why I started, and then kind of take you guys on a journey of how I started in year one, where I'm at in year two, and then some of my plans for the futures, some of the resources that I've used with the grant funding. I'll share about how we were able to get a lot of things through the grants, and then being able to answer any questions that you guys have. So the name of the farm is Live Organically. So we have about 5 acres out in Oak Grove. So this is an actual picture of what the farm was when I originally bought the place. I am not a junkie person, so I cringe every time that I see this, but this is what Google had of the property when I first bought it, and you guys can kind of see what it looked like when I first got it. It was basically a junkyard, and I had to basically come in and clean it up. So this is where the house is here. This is the barn. And then this is just some areas. These right here are the horses that were here before I moved in. But this is the areas here where I actually started growing. So I will kind of talk about some of the areas and how I had to clean up the place and where I originally started growing. This area here, when I started, I'll show you guys that I started off on a one quarter of an acre back here because this land was the most fertile. And as you can see, the horses was there. So they were giving me a lot of good poop that fertilize the ground for the most part. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and get started there. So another thing that I wanted to talk about was whenever I started buying the property, one of the things that I put this here because it was really important. It was part as the cleanup. Oh, let's go back here. I don't know if you guys can see it here. Okay, perfect. So one of the things that I had to do when I first bought the property was I had to actually get the water up to code. If you guys can see here, the water actually had bacteria. It came back positive for that. And it didn't meet the requirements for safe drinking water. So before I can even close on the house, we had to remedy that. And we also had an issue because I currently right now have like a drain field. So the drain field actually collapsed, and that's the whole heartbeat of my house where everything functions and, you know, the water goes out and does its own thing and, you know, all of that actually had collapsed. So a part of my contract agreement was to actually get the drain field replaced, which that is not expensive at all. I mean, that's not cheap at all. It's very expensive. And then I also had to remedify the water. So we had to do some chlorine shocks. And we found out after running the water for 8 hours, because that's what I was told to do, that there was a problem in the basement where the basement bath water just started overflowing. So there was more issues wrong with the house that I had to fix. But luckily it's all fixed now. And I highlighted this because this was something that even though the farm came with a house and a barn, the water condition and the drain field was a mess, and that was something that I had to fix. Going on to the next one. So originally when I started, you guys can see from this area here, it hasn't ever been tilled. It was just pasture land where the previous owner horses were just grazing. So this is where I originally started here. This is the signature point for Live Organically. It's actually the tree that you guys saw in the previous picture. I just haven't cut it down just because I think it's a great place that when I'm out there working, it provides shade. So that's the tree. I think the concept behind Live Organically, to kind of tell you guys a little bit about me, is that I had no farm experience at all. I didn't go to school for farming. I wasn't raised up in farming. But for me, maybe 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago, or maybe 3, I actually sold my property in North Minneapolis that I had, and I was actually getting ready to move to Africa because I have a nonprofit there, and I was doing some work with building up village schools. So I was just going to dedicate my life to become a missionary, and I was like, I'm going to leave America. And then in the process of doing that, I just felt something within inside of me trying to lead me to looking about and thinking about my future kids, and just how can I create an environment for them that would be sustainable, and especially with food. So maybe in my early 20s, I'm fairly young, but in my early 20s, I had like a lot of medical complications. I think I was like maybe 22 or 23 when I had some surgery and stuff going on. I had to get a colonoscopy because there was things going on with my bowel because my body wasn't digesting the meat. And I just had I was very sickly during that time. So that kind of caused me to change the way that I was eating, change the way that I saw my health. And it also led me to the point where I wanted to be able to make sure I understand what's going on in my food. And being able to grow and do that organically. During my daytime job, my professional training is education. I work as a professor, and I work as a special education director, where I oversee charter schools to make sure that they're in compliance as far as the state and federal law with their special education programming. So for me to come in farming, it doesn't make sense because, none of my background in education led me to that. But I believe it was more so my health and me wanting to being able to grow and produce my food. So when I originally started the first year here, this is what the soil test looked like. And usually when you're trying to, do any farming, and if you're trying to grow, it's a good idea to get a soil test done. So whenever I got my soil test, you guys can see that my organic matter, even with the horses' maneuver and stuff, was still like 1%, which is nothing. I think the highest you could go up to, I don't know if it's like 10 or so, but I think it's like 10 or so that you could go up to. I have 1% of organic matter when I originally started. And that can kind of maybe show you guys what the field actually looked like. So when I originally started, over here are some of my horses that I have. That was Gigi. That's Gigi. But here, when I originally started, the ground was never tilled. And you guys may not be able to see from the picture, but the soil was very sandy. There was nothing organic matter. There was nothing there. And it was very sandy. So let's see here. And this is another.
That's, I'm just going to jump in here. For those that don't know, it's just north of Twin Cities. And so this is the Anoka Sand Plain. So it's very sandy, glacial outwash.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So this is what I originally started with. Even though we had someone come in, till it all up, they didn't make the beds. So this is me out here doing the old fashioned way of measuring, making sure that each one of my beds were 3 feet, had 2 feet walk space, making sure that they're 50 feet, long. The tool that you see in the ground there is actually, I had to go in and rake and build up all of the beds because there was none. So this is what I started off with in the first year. And then you guys can see here, so during my first year of doing this, I just basically started off, one of the things that I want to talk about here was, this is the tomatoes. So you guys can kind of see the first year someone told me it would be best to kind of maybe put some of the black cloth down to cover up the tomatoes so that, it will help with the weed suppression. So I didn't know anything about tillicing, and I have a picture where I can show you guys that. So for the first year, all of the tomatoes, each one of them had their own little stake. So I had about 50 plants, and each one of them had their own little stake because I didn't know anything about tillicing it. My first year, I didn't know anything about watering, like a drip drip irrigation system. I didn't have that my first year. I had to basically go out and water 1/4 of an acre by hand with the water hose. And periodically I would get like the garden hoe and do this as well. But it was a rough growing period for me, I would say. And one of the things is with this picture, because the sand is so sandy, there was a lot of times with the moisture, it does not hold at all. So there's a lot of times, I think, and maybe in this picture you can see here, like after being watered, this is what it looks like, and it still looks completely dry. So this is kind of like some of the things of what I thought would highlight for the first year. Another thing that I wanted to kind of talk about was the weeds. So here you can see, even in the first year, I used the sustained fertilizer and fish oil. I didn't even put any compost down. And even in the midst of that, just watering it and with the fertilizer and the tools that I use, I was able to still get some things to grow. And this was a picture of some of the zucchini and squash plants that really grew within the first year. And you can see even there's still a lot of weeds. It's a lot to do the weeding. But the first year I didn't have any plan in place for the weeds. So they kind of just grew, and I was able to get to them when I was able to for the first year. During the first year, we had a couple of pests, or I don't want to call them pests, they're friends that I just need to know what to do with. Yeah, that's how I like to see them. But I started noticing some of the things like the tomato plants or certain things would be eaten up. And I tried to find a safe way to kind of control that. So this is one of our friends in this here, which is kind of like a rabbit catcher. So I caught the rabbit and then let the rabbit go so that I can kind of save some of my produce, because my friend was eating a lot of them. So that's kind of the beginning process of that. Okay, let's go here. So at the end of my first year, I kind of sat back and did some reflecting to kind of figure out what are some of the things that I can do as far as looking forward to next year and things that I can do to improve. One of the things was definitely here for the weeds. I walked away from the first year trying to figure out what plan would I implement that would be able to deal with the weeds here in the first picture. The second one is figuring out how can I come up with a plan that would deal with the moisture, because even after watering the plants, you guys can see from the meter that it was still dry. And then trying to figure out how can I come up with a better system to provide nutrients to the plants, because right now all I was using was just the sustain and the fish oil, and I didn't have any other ingredients or things of that sort that I was using as far as my nutrients plan for the plants. So starting the second year, after doing some reflecting, there's a couple of things that I changed to make my experience better. The first thing is I applied the drip irrigation. That was to help with water. Usually it would take me about 6 hours. I would be spending 5 to 6 hours a day watering, because I watered 2 times. And on the other days, if I was able to, I would do 3, but I would get up usually in the morning around 6, from 6 to 8:30. And then I would do an evening watering for the plants. So having the drip irrigation system allowed and it reduced me from having to be out watering. And all I have to do is just turn on the water from the barn and it would take care of the watering. So the black things that you guys see there are drip irrigation. So I put that down. I also did a new method that I got from one of the local organic farmers here in Oak Grove, and he was telling me to cover with hay. And the hay is to keep the moisture in. So I was to cover with hay. I do notice that there was a difference in my growing, but I also realized that I didn't cover with enough hay, because the hay is supposed to also help with the weeds as well. But like every week I would have to keep covering it with hay, just because I don't think I was putting enough hay down. And this is some of the areas here with the brassicas. And then in the back, I changed a method that I was doing with my tomatoes. I used that instead of doing it each by an individual post, I did the Florida weave for that one. And that helped it out a lot. I also applied row covers. So I was trying to grow arugula and other things outside. And I didn't know that the sun and the location of where I plant stuff has an effect sometimes. So we had to put the row cover over here because the green leafy vegetables that we were growing was getting too hot. So we used this year over some of our crops that were needing some shade. And that kind of helped out a lot for that. So year one, I didn't have a fence. I did have a 5-foot fence, and I got it from those T-posts from Menards and just did chicken wire around it. But the deers kept jumping over it. And even in my second year, you can kind of see here some of the deer that is in my corn here and eating some of the watermelon. This was another wonderful, wonderful friend of mine that was eating the watermelon here. So what I did this year is I actually I had a deer fence that was put up here. And I kind of just, had some help and was able to put this in to keep the deer out. And I was also able to get some funding from the water I think it's called like the water quality program with the Department of Ag, just because on the property I have a pond. And we got some funding to put up some of the fence to keep the animals, the horses, from going in that area. And then I also applied to the DNR, which is, I'm on their waiting list to get funding to be able to help me build up this fencing here, because the deer still sometimes can get through this fence here. So the year 2, we started off for this one. I'm grateful for my friends that came to help me here. You can kind of see some of their hands here in the picture, but I basically had to transplant 6,000 plants. And at that time, my interns had not started. I know, I did it. We did it all, me and my wonderful friends. We didn't have one of those fancy machines. I know Curtis Stone, he's doing some great work. He has that machine where he takes his transplants and, will them, and they automatically come off. I had to get each one of them from the tray and plant them and measure them out. So there was about 6,000 plants that I had to do. And my friends, what we would call help Lakisha work days, and they would come and help me to do some of the planting there. And this year, the second year, I used a lot of compost, and I also did earthworm casting and tea casting to kind of help with that. And what we did is we drenched the ground completely, with the nutrients and water. And then in this picture, you can see we covered it with hay, and they did pretty well with that. I wanted to go back here. The transplants for my second year, because the greenhouse wasn't up, I had to pay someone to be able to start our seeds and stuff in their greenhouse. And when you're doing like 6,000 to 8,000 plants, that can be very expensive. So it was quite a big bill to pay, but we needed to get the things jump started so we can have a good growing season. This year, for my second year, a lot of the weight of the farm was carried by the support that I've gotten. I see Melvin's on. Me and Melvin, we partnered together, and I had some interns here. And then I also had workers. So the farm really that we were doing in our second year for our CSA and our markets and all of the things that we were doing, a lot of that was ran by our interns and the workers. I was very grateful for that partnership. It was really impactful for both myself and the interns and the workers as well. My workers, I actually got them from one of my farmer friends, where there were, I think, 2 days a week he would send them to me on Monday and Wednesday, and then my interns would come on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And that's how we kind of ran the farm. And then Fridays, if I did anything, it would be me kind of doing it. But for majority of the time, every day I tried to make sure I had someone to help me, just because I couldn't do all of this by myself. So this year, one of the things that I had to do is I had to be in compliance with having people having my interns and workers on the farm. I had to actually create this whole COVID plan and the safety plan, and we had to get porta potties and we had to get the hand washing things. And that was very helpful because I never thought about like the importance of having that, because when my friends were there, they would just come in the house and use the bathroom, wash their hands. But when we started getting more people on the property, we were able to get a porta potty and a hand washing station that actually came from the Department of Ag. We got a grant for, I think it's like the farm safety for like the whole COVID release. So we were able to get some masks, we were able to get some hand washing stations and some other things to kind of help with that. Another thing is during the first year, a lot of the produce that I was growing, I was just eating for myself. So I wasn't really mindful of where I was washing it, where I was washing things. So this is what the barn looked like. And I decided to take this barn and make it into my packing shed and the area where we wash the vegetables. So all of this had to be completely cleared out, and we had to set it up where we would be washing and making sure that it was safe to wash and things of that sort. So I just used the space that I had and I made this my packing shed. These are some of the things for this year that we use to kind of wash. So the first picture here, and I do want to say, I felt like I need to say this since I am on the food safety team, the water hose is not actually on the floor. I do want to say that. It is in this picture, but you see these little orange things there? That's where the water hose actually hangs from. It just so happened for this picture that it was on the ground. And I just wanted to say that. Because I am practicing the food safety protocol, okay? All right, so the ideal is we started off with these 2 buckets here. We would basically wash in here, rinse in here, and then the dry tables, which are here, is where we would dry the vegetables. And then these little pallets here, because you don't want any of this stuff to be on the floor. I was just at Menards one day, and the Menards give all of those things for free. So all of the pallets here I got for free. I just picked them up from Menards. So this is what we use this year to actually wash our vegetables. But I'm happy for next year, it's going to be a lot better. We'll have a walk-in cooler. We'll have like the 3 compartment stainless steel restaurant sinks because we were able to get a grant through the SHIP program of Anoka County. So with that next year, it'll take away these tubs here. We'll have a sink over here on this wall here, and we'll have, they gave us some money for a walk-in cooler. So the walk-in cooler will actually go here in this area there. So it'll be a big walk-in cooler here, and then we will also from the SHIP program in Anoka County, they was able to give us some support far as getting us like a salad spinders. You know, some of my farmer friends use like an old wash machine. So I didn't have an old wash machine. So they just got us 2 of the fancy restaurant salad spinders that we can spin. And they were able to give us some scales, because one of the things I want to do is track our produce and how much pounds we're producing. So they were able to give us some scales and stuff like that. And a lot of the funding for the pack shed and the things that we're doing is coming from the Anoka County SHIP program. Okay. Something else that we were able to do this year, we were 2 different sources here. So this picture is me working to help put up the greenhouse. So we have a greenhouse. The greenhouse is like a 40 by 60, and we got a grant funding for that. We were awarded the Urban Ag Youth grant from the Department of Ag. So we were able to use that to be able to build up a greenhouse that hopefully some of the kids from Minneapolis will be able to come out and get some teaching and some training, providing COVID and where we are with that. But we do have a greenhouse. And then this other one is the hoop house. So our hoop house is 30 by 120. And we were able to get that. Through the NCRS. So they had an EQIP program that we qualified for, and we were able to get that up. So right now on the property, we have a greenhouse that's up, and we also have the hoop house, which is a 30 by 120 feet. And all of that was grant funded. Something else, something else that I am doing. I think I am a very adventurous person, and sometimes I do things and I don't think them through. But I wanted to be able to produce my own eggs because I am a vegetarian, so I don't eat meat. And I thought, what a great idea it would be to have chickens, and I can just produce my own eggs. So this is a very comical thing here because I'm like, I want to be the chicken keeper. I want all of the chickens, but where am I going to put the chickens? So I had to call the city just to check the ordinance because sometimes different counties have requirements where they do not allow like roosters and chickens. So luckily for me, for my county, they will allow me to have 10 chickens per acre. So because I have 5 acres right now, I have 50 chickens. So right now I have 50 chickens, and they are, when I got them, because they're going to be organic certified, they were baby chicks, so they were only like a day old. So my plan is during the winter months, I'm just growing them, letting them grow, and then come around March, they should start laying eggs. So that's kind of where we are with that. Lillian came out to help me with that because I needed a place to put the chickens, and we put them in the barn, but we built the wall up so that it's like separate. So where we're washing the food, it's not in the same area with the chickens. So we are making sure that that is safe and sanitized. Okay. The other thing is this year, second year, I was able to do my CSA. These are some of the things that we will put like in a half a share. I gave them a lot of food just because this was my first year and I wanted them to come back next year. And one of the things is the CSA, I felt we did really good this year, but because of the fact that I didn't have transportation to like take it, like a truck or something to take it to a different location. A lot of the CSA people actually came to the farm. So if they were in the area, it was on farm pickup for that. Next year, I'm looking at getting more sites, partnering with some of my connections to be able to do some in the Twin Cities and other of the surrounding areas where we'll be able to deliver and being able to increase our capacity to be able to serve more food to our community. But this year it was a lot. It's a lot of pressure to do the CSA, especially on my type of soil. So I had to do like a big investment in compost. So I spent like almost over $1,600 to $1,800 just on compost because my soil isn't the best soil for brassicas, or isn't the best soil for some of the crops that we were growing. So I had to add the compost to make sure that they would produce, because a lot of the people paid me in advance to be able to produce for them. So overall, I thought that the CSA was a great start, and I will continue to keep doing it for next year. Something else that we did do this year, we also sold to the LEAF program. So the LEAF program is like helping farmers who have been impacted by COVID. So a lot of the produce that we had, if we had any extra, I sold it to the LEAF program, and that was another stream of income for me as well for the farm.
And that was through the Good Acre, right?
Yes, through the Good Acre. So talking about kind of the future and what my plans are and what I'm planning on doing. So right now, I feel like after 2 years, I feel like I've gotten the basic stuff that I need to farm. Right now, my plans is to work on building up my soil. So right here where the hoop house is, I am working on, this year I'm growing without cover crops. And then the following year, I'm going to include the cover crops here and try to partner with the U of M because they're doing some work with the cover crops and hoop house growing to kind of see if it's beneficial for me to use the hoop house to be able to like grow cover crops in the hoop house and see if that will help with my production. I am in the process of working on putting up another greenhouse here for hydroponics. So was able to get some funding for that and still looking for more funding. So I'll probably be writing another grant for that to get some funding to do hydroponics here in this area as well. So my first year, second year, I only grew in this area here. So with the third year, I tilled this area here, put some cover crop, and now I'm looking to actually be growing on this area as well. And for me, what I'm trying to do is I am also working on building my knowledge, because I feel like the way that I grow and the way that my farm becomes better is by me continue to keep learning. So I am doing, I'm enrolled into permaculture. So I'm taking permaculture classes and getting certified and all of that. And I think I also got my letter of acceptance to the Land Steward Project. They have like a beginner's farm program as well. So during the winter months, those are the two things that I'm going to be doing, and doing some other trainings as well to make sure for next growing season, I'm getting the knowledge and the resources that I need to make the third year better than it was the second year.
And Lakisha, you said you did participate in the Big River Farms course.
Yeah, so I actually
not the farm training, but the course.
Yeah. So I actually did for 1 year the Big River. Because of my work schedule, I was not ever able to attend any of their classes. So they just recorded it online for me, and I was able to watch the classes there. And then a part of their program is they will send out like a farm mentor. So I had Katie from the Big River. She came out to the farm like twice, and I could text her anytime to get some guidance there for the first year. And that was very helpful. I wish I was able to get more hands-on, but because of my work schedule, I couldn't. And a lot of the support that I've been getting, it's coming from, the local farmers in the area, and just some of the farm friends that I've made along the way to kind of help. And then I'm always constantly working on getting more training. I'm enrolled into the Land Stewardship Project to get more training, to kind of make sure, what I have is constantly growing.
So I think we have some questions here. Katie, you want to?
And just what year that you bought the farm, and then how many acres total, and if you're willing to discuss like the cost of the land, then that'd be appreciated.
Yeah, so one of the things I think is I will always like to start off by saying I don't necessarily feel that I may be a traditional farmer, because this is the route that I went. And I think because I did go to school and I have a doctor's degree, and because I have other sources of income coming in, I think I'm at a different bracket to be able to purchase the land. Whereas if people who are beginning to be farmers, getting land is definitely an issue. It's definitely an issue. And even, the financing of the land with the bank companies can definitely be an issue. So I do want to say that for me, I was able to purchase the 5 acres on my own, just with me and my income that I have from being a director and being a professor. So I was able to buy the land, for myself without having to use it for the farm. It's total of 5 acres. And with the 5 acres, it came with the barn and the house and all of the junk that I had to clean up.
And you live there.
And I live here. Yes,
Yeah.
and I live here. Yeah.
So I think that's an excellent point. I mean, in some of the previous meetings this summer, a lot of the advice for people is don't quit the day job, because to support yourself on farming, it's going to take a while.
Yeah, for sure. And I think everyone can echo, I didn't come into farming to make money. So no one comes here, into farming to make money. We do it because we have a passion, for sure.
Thank you. And then was it 2018 that you bought the land and started then? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious why the chickens were an issue. Was the property zoned residential, which is why there's no limit on chickens, but no roosters? That's a separate question. We'll start with that one.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think a lot of things because for me, because I have rental property and I flipped properties in the past, I just know that it's really important that you call your city before you do anything. And so for me, I just basically called the city and I let them know what it was that I was doing to check their ordinance. And they were telling me that the ordinance for Oak Grove, where I stay, we could only have 5 chickens, not 5 chickens, 10 chickens per acre. And even with my horses, I was originally, I had 4 horses, and originally I was going to get more horses to kind of set up like a horse therapy center for students with autism, because that's what my day job is, but they told me I could only have 4 for that just because of the ordinance that is set with the city. And even for the greenhouse and the hoop house, I had to call them to let them know that this is what I was doing, and they gave me a waiver so I didn't have to pay like the city permit because I'm doing it for agriculture. So I think what it is every county is very different of what they will and what they won't allow. Some of my friends, I think in now and then, they can't have any chickens or any roosters. So it depends on what your city will allow. And I think your question was, did that answer your question?
It was Sophia's. Did that get to the meat of what you were looking for?
Oh, yes.
Big question. I was just, because it looks like on the picture you're in a really rural area, so I was wondering why there was a limit on the chickens.
Yeah.
If it was like zoned residential or it wasn't zoned agricultural or something.
Yeah, so it's listed right now as residential. And I think in order for you to be listed as agriculture, you have to have 10 acres. Yeah. And the funny thing is this is just the beginning of like the neighborhood. If you go down the road, there's a lot of houses that are closer together. So I'm happy that I'm away from them and I didn't get any roosters. So my neighbors would be happy with me.
How many acres are in production of the 5, and then how many people are in your CSA this year?
Yeah, so this one right here, so this here is about 1 acre. So basically this year we did 1 acre. Next year we'll have this area and then this area, and that should be about 2.5 or 3 acres between this place, this one, and that one. Okay, in the CSA, I think we had like a total of 25, which is a lot. I wouldn't recommend that. Not when you're first starting out, unless you just know, if you know the quality of your soil. But it was a lot. It was a lot of pressure for me to be able to produce for that. It was a lot. But it got done. It was successful, but it's a lot.
And just while we were answering that, another one popped up here. Have you thought about using a lot of design concepts from permaculture?
So that's the reason why I am in school, to learn some of those designs. I just started, I'm hoping what my plan is for the winter months, I'm going to be able to learn some of the designs so that next harvest season I can be able to come back and implement those into the farm, because that is definitely my plan, to be able to do that.
As you're thinking about your questions, I think we've all observed the amount of resources and help and Department of Ag and DNR and NRCS and Extension and Big River Farms and Good Acre. And I think that's what's so amazing and so educational, is that if you're going to do something like this, you need help of all kinds. And Lakisha has just reached out, clearly knows how to write grants. And that's what it takes. Especially if you're just starting out and your learning curve is steep, but you seem to be climbing right up the learning curve here. And that's what I encourage people all the time is, and Lakisha had this conversation about grants and so forth. A lot of farmers and others are just not great with the written word, let's say, or filling out forms. And sometimes these grants can be onerous for people who aren't used to these things. And so you find somebody that can help you write the grant. I think if you want to, on the last page, I put together some of the resources, but Keisha's done an awesome job of reaching out.
Yeah, so
you seem to be like a vacuum cleaner for information, and that's what it takes.
Yeah. So these are some of the resources here that I use. I definitely want to say, definitely for the grants. For me, I know that I've been talking to some of my other farmer friends, which I'm working on helping them write the grants, because the language can be very overwhelming. But I think because I've written educational grants before, I just kind of did the best that I could do. But so far, I was telling this to Carl, and I think it's okay to share everything that we've done with the farming. It's been really getting some supporting grant funding, because a lot of this stuff, well, not a lot of it, all of it costs money that I don't have. I do want to say that. And having the grant funding and that support is easier for me without having to get into debt trying to do something, you know, that I'm very passionate about. So I do want to highlight the MDA because a lot of our funding came from the Department of Agriculture, and also too, which isn't on here, is the SHIP program through Anoka County.
Yeah.
That was a big resource. I mean, for us to get a walk-in cooler and get some of those things that we need, that was very big as well. These are just some of the resources that I've used. There's tons of other things out there, but this is some of the things that I've used. The Good Acre, the LEAF program. This is a great program if anyone is looking, if you're farming and you're looking for an outlet, if you've been affected by COVID, to sell produce. That was really good. And we're working on we should be around for next year. I'm also on the committee for this program as well. And I know that we've gotten some funding to be around for next year. The NRCS, that's a really good resource because they have like a lot of programs for beginning farmers and minority farmers to help, and that's a free service. The Department of Ag, I would definitely want to highlight them again. That's been really great as far as the support that I've been getting from them. And then the Big River, I know some of my other farmer friends went to the Big River and did the 3-year program where they grow on their land and have that support. For me, I had off-site support with them. And then the University of Minnesota has been really good. And just the food safety team, Annalise, Natalie has been good. And even Lillian from the department, just because I'm working on, my goal is to begin to, for next year, now that I have the freezer, I have everything with the greenhouse and I can be able to produce it, to be able to sell to schools. And there's some documents that you need to have and systems that you need to have in place before you start selling to the schools and doing wholesale, because they do ask for those things. So this is a great resource if you need to look into getting GAP certified, or you need to do your safety operation procedures plan and stuff like that. Those are great resources from the U. MCIA, that's just my organic certifier. I call them anytime I get ready to do something, I call them just to make sure I'm doing everything right so I don't have to jeopardize my organic certification. And then the DNR was what I use for fencing.
And Patrice has thrown up a couple more resources from MDA. Check out the chat. And then Katie, you want to run through some of the questions?
Would you have a different set of customers in year one, like selling to businesses or a farmer's market, until you know how yields would be?
Yeah, so that's okay. So hindsight, would you have different set of customers in year one? So the answer to the question, I think the first year I wouldn't change anything because I needed to know what I was able to produce. In the first year, I just basically produced for myself, my friends. We did do something, an event, a harvest day with the YMCA, and that was very stressful because we had 100 people that we had to serve. But for me, the second year, I think once I was able to get an idea of my yields, I was able to sell wholesale to the LEAF and do a couple of farmers markets this year. As well. So I did do farmers markets this year. I don't think I mentioned that, but I would say, no, I would leave it the same. The first year I would just not want to have that stress. And then the second year, once I saw what I was able to do, I would start selling to markets and to businesses, because it's a lot of pressure, you know, and I think even for me trying to sell to the business, okay, perfect. I don't know if you can see that. Even with me starting to try to sell to the business, when you have those conversations, the first thing that they ask you is, how long have you been growing? And, you know, I think sometimes they're willing to take a risk on you, but I think sometimes they want to know that you've been at least growing for at least 3 years, or you have some type of records that, hey, I sold to this organization, this is how much I was able to produce, before they will kind of maybe engage in that conversation, if that makes any sense.
And then kind of along those lines too, JJ Kim asks, are you breaking even at this point, or do you keep investing into your farm for the second year? And when would you expect to break even?
Yeah, so that is a great question. I don't take any salary from the farm just because I have my day job that takes care of me. So we are not in the negative with the farm. We actually do make a profit. I just put everything back into the farm because I have a job that takes care of everything. So whatever the farm makes, and I don't take any money from it. Did that answer the question? So
that's very notable for your situation, for just being in your second year too. Those day jobs are key. Scroll down here. Another one, how many years do you expect to build up soils?
So my plan is, okay, sidebar, I had a conversation with someone that was a lover of the earth and all of this wonderful things. And they were telling me that my soil is like a human being. It has a heartbeat, you know, it has all of these wonderful things. And my reply was, it's just dirt. And they responded back to me and they said, and that's what the problem is, Lakisha. You got to start seeing your soil as the heartbeat of your farm. And you have to start beginning to pour everything into that to make sure that is up and running. And when they told me that, I think it shifted the way that I kind of saw my soil. So like now my main focus is to build her up, to give her what it is that she needs. I can easily say, I'm talking to the other farmer that's here in Oak Grove. He is a no-till farm. And he said that it took him 7 years to build up his soil. So for me, I'm only in my second year. So I'm planning on for the next 5 years, just building up the soil, building up that organic matter, applying the composters and doing those things. So eventually the organic matter will be, you know, sustainable and that I don't have to keep tilling the soil.
Patrice, I see you got to jump off there. Thanks, Amelia, and keep us all in the loop about the Emerging Farmer Committee working group. And great to have you with us. Thank you so much.
So as Lakisha was talking about farm to school, and Lakisha, I can't say enough how proud I am of all the work that you're doing and how far you've come. But when you're talking about farm to school, I just remembered that the Emerging Farmers Conference, and I don't know if many of you are aware of that conference, Carl and I are part of that planning team and the outreach committee. One of the, just in our last meeting, we were kind of working through some of the workshops and presentations, and one of them that, you know, seems like a lot of farmers have indicated that may be of interest is scaling to wholesale, you know, accessing markets and what to know about pricing and all that good stuff. So I would encourage if folks here are interested in learning more, or at least a community of farmers who are, you know, to some extent exactly like Lakisha, who are new in farming and just got started and are making all these strides. That's a great conference to come in and kind of just network, and also a lot of these resources that are being shared here and more. And people like Lakisha and others who are farmers who are considered beginning farmers are mostly the audience in that conference. So Carl and I can share more of that information if that's of interest. But that's all I wanted to put out there.
Okay. Do we have any other more questions?
We do, yeah. There was someone was looking to see if you could talk more about your hydroponic plans.
Yeah. So I've been doing some research on that. I've been looking at some of since I'm from Florida, I've been looking at the University of Florida. They have an extension there and they've been doing very good with their hydroponic setup. So I've been trying to look at some of their methods. And then I reached out to a couple of professors at the U, and then Natalie as well, who's at the U, to kind of talk about, you know, with the hydroponics, what is the nutrients plans that I'm going to need for all of these plants and stuff that I've been growing. So once I get the greenhouse set up, Natalie will be working with me. And I reached out to her to kind of get some support in that, to figuring out how do I make sure that the temperature is right? How do I make sure that I have the right nutrients plans for it? So that's kind of where I'm at. I think I like to call this the research stage because I think before I jump into something I'm learning with farming, I may need to know what I'm doing and getting some help and some support. So with the hydroponics greenhouse, it'll kind of be very similar to the one that I have. We have like a 40 by 60, but this one is going to be a little bit bigger just because we can get more in the space there. And the ideal is I'm supposed to look at growing, from the research that I've done, growing the peppers and lettuces in there. So my ideal is if I get a market for schools and I'm providing their salad bar, a lot of the lettuces that we grow will be grown in that hydroponics greenhouse, just because I know from farming the land, the lettuce here doesn't do as good as I would want it to. But if I can have more control over that and more control of their growth and their nutrients, I think I can be able to do that in the hydroponics if we set it up for like the lettuces and stuff like that. The hoop house that we have, we're just growing tomatoes and peppers, just because when they were outside, sometimes I can't control the heat or the bugs. So with the hoop house we have, that's what we're growing, would be tomatoes and peppers. For the hydroponics, it's going to basically be for the lettuces, because my goal is to sell to the school and provide the salad bars.
There's one more question, and noted that anyone can answer this. Do you have any recommendations for good day jobs for beginning farmers doing farmers markets or CSAs?
Well, I threw in a sarcastic comment, but go ahead, Lakisha.
Yeah, so I don't know if they're looking for the job in that area. I do know for me, one of the things that I would definitely say to do in the farming community, we're very friendly people. I've called people and say, hey, can I come see your farm? Do you want to come see mine? Come look at what I have going on, and they would let me come to their farm. And I even done things where I volunteer, you know, before I went to the market, I actually went with the farmer and helped them set up, helped them do their markets, so that way before I did it, I actually knew what to expect. And a lot of times, you know, people are very open to that. If you want to if they're having a work day and you want to volunteer, you can volunteer to get some support in that area as well. But I don't know if that's like a day job. I know for me, I did like a lot of visiting other farms, volunteering, helping them so that I can learn what I need to do on my farm. And I'm not for sure if that answered the question.
I see Beth and Jennifer are putting some things there. I suggested nonprofits and others that kind of work in the ag conservation realm. There's job boards and things that cater to them. You know.
So Fai, I think also you're the one who asked that question, right? Yeah, I think it's also a lot of networking, right?
Yes.
And just trying to see, you know, what works. And I'll be happy to, you know, get connected and just, you know, if we hear something like what Carl put out there, it's really a lot of networking and getting these jobs. And I have to say, from an equity perspective and, you know, from that lens, we need a lot of people of color to get into these positions and these jobs, so that you can also, you know, we can also at least go out there and make sure that agriculture is also a viable economic track for all of us and not just for a few, right? So yeah. I think let's get connected and see, you know, what happens. I have to be honest, right now, I think state government, at least from the states, the state side, there's a lot of budget constraints right now with the pandemic and you know, all that stuff. There's a lot of hiring freezes on most of our agencies, including ours. So those are not really active right now. But nonetheless, I think the networking can still go on. And like Lakisha said, it's a great community of farmers, and I'm sure we can all help each other out.
Absolutely. And I always like to emphasize, and it's changing finally, but the Department of Ag, Minnesota Extension, NRCS, USDA, these are the government. And we've been told for 40 years that the government is somehow evil, but it's your government and our government. And there's usually a phone number there and a person, you just call them up. You tell them, even if you just say, I'm not sure what I want, and they'll say, well, I can help you. So, I mean, I think a lot of people are just not used to thinking of the government as something for them. But you're a citizen, you pay taxes, it's yours. So part of it is just going in the door like Lakisha's done, and it's there for you too. And I think we think that the government is this weird, bizarre thing that can't be touched, but it's our government. And if it's screwed up, that's because we haven't been in there. And the fact that people like Lillian are there and Patrice, that's way different world than when I started. So, and in a good way for sure. What else? Just jump in if you have any thoughts, comments, questions.
I have a question. This might be kind of like naive, but I don't really understand like the business I have my day job. Like if I were to do something like this, and first of all, like this is completely inspirational. You're amazing. Do you have like a business set up, like a legal separate business so that like your farm income is like separate from your personal income? I guess I don't have any understanding of like how that side of things works. So it'd be helpful if you could chat about that.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say that's a great question. So I have an accounting. Let me just say that, just because right now the farming is set up as an LLC, so it will be claimed on my personal taxes. But I also have other stuff that I don't know how to do. Like I have rental properties and I have other stuff like that. So I have an accountant who does that. And I would recommend that if you guys are doing like a business, farm business, get someone in that area that knows how to do that. Do not try to do it online. Go to a real live human and let them do that, because that can get very tricky. But my accountant has been very good. I keep receipts for everything. I would definitely say get an accountant or get someone that's going to be able to do that for you. If you set it up as a nonprofit, then that is something different. But in LLC, you're going to have to talk to an accountant, because that's going to be included as part of your income, at least for me. But I would say have an accountant.
A plan not written down is not a plan. I'm going to post one of our web pages from the Growers Network. The first two PDFs there are some great resources that answer partly that question. One of them is just a bunch of top 10 lists of different agricultural farmers and organizations that list, okay, here's the top 10 things you need to do if you want to go farming. And one of them is, besides all that Lakisha's done, get help and etc., start small, get your business plan and write things down and really think hard about what it is you want to do. And the thing about plans is they change, but you got to start and find some, if you're not a good money business person like me, for example, find somebody that is. So the FSA can help, and Compere, we have Saitao is in the area. There's people that know how to run through that stuff. And again, like writing out grants, it's intimidating, but the most important thing is to start.
That I can put in the chat, and there'll be an email to attendees as well. But on Monday, there's a webinar for value-added grants from MDA. There's going to be farmers who have written those grants, have gotten them, giving advice on how to write a really strong application. And people there from, I think the U of M Extension is doing it, and maybe somebody else there to walk you through kind of all the ins and outs of that particular grant. And there will be a similar one on Wednesday for other farmer or rancher grants, which will cover a few other ones as well. But I'll be sure to drop those in chat and get those links to you. But there's quite a few partners, SFA and Extension included, and MDA, working to make these funding opportunities a lot more understandable, so you can spend less time on them and still have a better shot at receiving some funds there. So keep an eye out for those, because there will be more.
And speaking of funding, I just think it's important to realize that the regular commodity ag world and the current administration is just pumping in billions of dollars to prop up this system, and I might add, get votes along the way. So if you have any qualms about taking government money, I'd say get over it, because what we're doing here is peanuts compared to the billions to prop up the commodity system. So oops, we weren't supposed to get political, but it's changing. I mean, they didn't used to fund any hoop houses or any insurance for vegetable crops or anything. So it's getting better little by little.
Lakisha, I was wondering, you talk about building up your soil. And as I put in a chat, I'm planting some winter rye for the first time. And I also am planting a mix of green manure that I'm going to be able to turn under. So I would like to learn from you and hear what you've what you're thinking of or what you've explored along that way or what you know?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. So this is the first year that I actually did cover crops. So the first year I didn't do anything, but from the research, it seems that the cover crops would be very beneficial. I actually use the legume mix, and I use that because the legume mix will die out during the winter time. So when March comes or when, that April come and I need to get some potatoes or something in, I don't have to worry about it flowering or anything because it's going to be dead. So I haven't used the winter rye. I've been just using the legume mix, and this is the first year of doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Cool. I'm excited.
And I posted the front page of the soil health webpage for Sustainable Farming Association and the principles there. You want to keep things growing as much as you can, which is where cover crops come in. And with that rye, that winter rye, make sure it doesn't get too ahead of you in the spring because it'll be a challenge for you to turn under. Add livestock manures, all of that. And I just want to say, so sorry about the mix up. I got to make sure I figured out the passcode thing. I thought I had it figured out. I did it twice and it worked, and this time it didn't work. So sorry about that, but we got rolling. We finally got rolling.
Before you roll to the end, did we cover the question about beginning women farmers? Apologies if I missed that.
What was the question?
Grants. For beginning women farmers?
Oh, yeah. So I personally, a lot of the grants that I've gotten has been coming from being a beginning farmer and my focus with youth, just because I'm in education and my focus have been with youth. So a lot of the grants that I've applied for has been youth focused or either just with the NRC as just because I am a woman, I'm a minority, and I'm a beginning farmer. I think that's how I qualified for the hoop house that we have. So I think that maybe have been the only category that I've applied for as far as a women's grants. I personally haven't done a lot of research in that area. Usually when I apply to youth because that's my focus, and working on that. But Carl, maybe you guys or someone else there may know some other resources for women farmers.
Okay. I posted the Farm Service Agency. I just posted there. Go to their link. They've got minority and woman farmer and rancher grants. And they have a variety of first-time farmer and different things going on. And if you want to figure out who your FSA person is, give me a call. But you can check it out there. I don't know if the state has anything specific to women. It's mostly beginning or minority.
Yeah, it's mostly the agri grants, and we're working on the emerging farmers working group to see how we can leverage some resources for that as well.
I put in the chat a bit ago, this is Valentine. There's a working meeting next Wednesday for folks interested in the agrarian commons, which is a strategy to try to get land that can be leased in the long term for below market costs to farmers. And it's launching in Southeast Minnesota, which basically is the quadrant up to and including the Twin Cities. And so next Wednesday, 6 to 8, everyone's welcome. There are about 70 people who've signed up to be in kind of working groups to figure out how will this work in Minnesota. It's one of 12 states starting this. So it'd be great for the land side if people want to work on that.
Yeah, that's all about, this everybody owning land, fee title, owning it is great, but
it adds a lot of expense. And what would it look like?
Right, and when you're starting out, you're not making money, and you can't if you got to float a loan, especially in the metro priced acres. So
if you don't have a different job as well. So yeah, so it's not the whole answer, but it's one piece of the puzzle, hopefully.
No, there's going to be a kaleidoscope of answers, and I think Lakisha's doing it is one story, but from her story, we can pull out different ideas and pathways that people in different situations can do similar kinds of things. I mean, I think we all have more resources and support sometimes than we think we do. But again, reaching out and not being afraid to ask the, dumb question kind of thing. Well, Lakisha, any parting thoughts?
I just would say, you know, from my journey, I think I have to be transparent and say my success comes from those who are around me. And I think I've been very successful. Yes, Valentin, hugs, hugs. I've been very successful because I've surrounded myself with amazing people that believe in me and are willing to help. And I think that that is something that is really important for anybody. You know, if you're doing farming or any area in your life, make sure you have some good support around you, because farming is hard work. There are days where I wake up and I'm like, what am I thinking? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. But just having that phone call or talking to someone, you know, it does help you and encourage you along the way. So I would say make sure you get some support and reach out, ask for help. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, that's excellent. And that's the whole idea of this network, is to network. And Mr. COVID came to town and kind of screwed up the face-to-face. But, you know, you can search and stuff on the web and you can do all these things. But when you get together with people, that's where it's at. And so thankfully, computers can allow us to do this. So thanks, everybody. And a lot of great thank yous to you, Lakisha, there on the chat. And this will all be sucked up in the cloud somewhere. And this has been recorded. And we'll post that on the SFA webpage. And SFA has a YouTube channel as well, I believe.
Yeah, I'll be sure to kind of collect a lot of the resources and links that we talked about today and combine it. So it'll all be in one spot for you.
All right. Well, Lakisha, thank you. And thanks, Katie, for helping me out here.
Thanks for letting me screw up the time for you. I really apologize for that.
So great to see everybody. And we will keep this ball rolling and we'll keep pushing and hopefully have a little fun and community along the way.
Alrighty.
Thanks again.
Alrighty.
Peace to you all.
Thanks, everyone.